What's up, everybody? This is Big Sarge back with another video. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the differences between active duty, the reserves, and the National Guard, in case you were thinking about joining the U.S. Army. So let's get into it. If you're thinking about joining the U.S. Army, or you're just curious about how all of this works, then you've probably heard people talking about active duty, the Army Reserve, and the National Guard. But what do those terms actually mean? And more importantly, how do they impact your life, your commitment, and your future? So I'm going to go ahead and break all this down in a clear, concise manner so that you can finally understand the differences when people toss these words around. So let's go. What is active duty? So, active duty is what most people think of when they picture someone in the Army full time. When you're on active duty, the Army is your full time job. You live and breathe military life. You're doing trainings, deployments, duties, and everything in between. You can be stationed anywhere in the world, whether it's in the US or whether it's overseas. Your schedule is determined by the Army. This is not a regular 9 to 5 job. And you receive full military benefits like health care, a housing allowance if you're not living in the barracks, and retirement options. So basically, you're a full-time soldier. It's not something you squeeze in on the weekends or do on the side. This is your main career. So now let's talk about the U.S. Army Reserve. So the Army Reserve, this is a part-time commitment, but you're still a real deal soldier. And when you're in the reserves, you train 1 week in a month and 2 weeks out of the year, usually in the summer. You live a mostly civilian lifestyle where you go to school, you get a job, and you hang out with your friends and family, but you're always on call. So if the Army needs you for an operation, emergency, or deployment, you can be activated. The reserve, they are designed to support the active duty force. So think of it as a strategic backup. When things get busy or a mission requires more manpower, then the reservists, they step in. So if active duty is full-time, then the reservists are part-time with the potential to go full-time temporarily. And then there's the National Guard. So the Army National Guard is similar to the reserves in that it's part-time, but it has a dual mission. And here's where things get interesting. So National Guard members, they serve under the state government at the direction of the governor for local emergencies such as natural disasters, riots, hurricanes, floods, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Under the federal government, where they fall up under the authority of the president, the National Guard works for both state and federal authorities depending upon the situation. So here's how the National Guard works. So they have the same monthly schedule, but they train 1 weekend out of a month, 2 weeks a year. They have the same training and standards as active duty and reserve soldiers, but you may also get called up by your state governor to respond to local crises, which can add a unique dimension. So if you like the idea of serving your community as well as your country, then the Guard might be the right fit for you. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about money. So how does the pay differ? So when it comes to active duty pay, you're going to receive base pay, and this is based on your rank and years in service. You're going to get what is called BAH, or basic allowance for housing, and this is if you live off base. You're going to get health care that's fully covered. You're going to qualify for retirement benefits after 20 years. You're going to have access to military discounts and programs and a whole bunch of other stuff. When it comes to the reserve and the National Guard, you're paid for the time that you serve, meaning you're paid during drills, trainings, or deployments. And you typically earn 4 days of pay for each weekend drill. Now, you can receive bonuses depending upon your job or your MOS and the length of your contract. And if you're activated full-time, you will receive active duty pay and benefits. Now, the pay isn't bad, especially considering it's a part-time job, but don't expect to get rich unless you land some serious bonus money. Now, let's talk about the training. So, do all of them go to basic training? And of course, the answer is yes. So no matter which path you choose, you're going to basic training. Everyone becomes a soldier the same way. Now, after basic training, you're going to head off to what is called AIT, or advanced individual training, to learn your MOS, aka the job that you signed up for in the military. Now, the big difference is what happens after AIT. So when it comes to active duty, you're going to get sent off to your first duty station to report for duty. When it comes to the reservists or the National Guard, you're going to return home and then start your part-time service schedule. All right, so let's talk about deployments. So let's be real. This is one of the biggest concerns for anyone thinking about joining the Army. When it comes to active duty, you're more likely to deploy. That is a part of the job. When it comes to the reserves, deployments they can happen, especially if your unit is activated, but they're generally less frequent. And then when it comes to the National Guard, you can be deployed overseas, especially during large scale missions or conflicts, but you're also likely to be called up for emergencies within your state. So the bottom line is this: if you want to minimize your chances of being deployed overseas, then the Guard or the reserves might be a safer bet. But just remember, there are no guarantees that you're going to 100% avoid a deployment. All right, next, let's talk about career and civilian life balance. So, when it comes to active duty, it's hard to balance civilian life because the military is your full time life. Some people do thrive in this environment, and others, they do find it hard to maintain relationships, go to school, or just have some type of outside interests. When it comes to the reserve and the National Guard, you can work a civilian job, or you can go to college and you can live life outside of the uniform. It's more flexible, which is why many people prefer this route. Plus, employers, they are legally required to hold your job if you're activated for military service. And that protection gives reservists and guardsmen some peace of mind. Let's talk about educational benefits. So yes, there are benefits, but they do vary. So when it comes to active duty, you're going to have access to the post 9/11 GI Bill. You're going to have access to tuition assistance while you're on active duty. And when it comes to the post 9/11 bill, that covers up to 100% of college costs, depending upon your service time. Then there's the reserves. You're going to be eligible for the Montgomery GI Bill Selected Reserve. And it's also going to be possible for you to access the post 9/11 GI Bill if you get deployed. And then you may qualify for tuition assistance as well, but it might be limited. And then when it comes to the National Guard, you're going to get the same Montgomery GI Bill benefits. There's going to be some additional state educational benefits where some states offer 100% tuition at public colleges. And then there's going to be some federal tuition assistance if available. So basically, if education is your number one priority, you want to make sure that you explore what each option offers in your specific state or career field. All right, so let's get down to it. Which path is right for you? So you're going to want to choose active duty if you want the Army to be your full-time job, or you're ready to move around, deploy, and live the military lifestyle, or you just want full benefits, a steady paycheck, and a more structured career path. You're going to want to choose the Army Reserve if you want to serve while keeping a civilian career or education. You're okay with occasional deployments or activations, and you want to contribute to the Army's mission without going full-time. You're going to want to go into the National Guard if you want to stay close to home and serve your community, or you're interested in responding to local emergencies, or you want a part-time role that has both state and federal responsibilities. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the pros and cons of each one. So when it comes to active duty, the pros are you get full-time pay and benefits, you get an immersive experience, you get opportunities for promotion and travel, and you get a steady military career. The cons, you have less freedom and flexibility. You're going to have frequent relocations or deployments, and it's going to be harder to balance your personal life. When it comes to the reserves, the pros are you can keep your civilian job or go to school. You still get military training and benefits, and it provides a good balance of service and your personal life. When it comes to the cons, the pay and benefits are less than active duty. You can still be deployed with short notice, and it's less of a close-knit military culture. When it comes to the National Guard, the pros are you get to serve your state and community directly. You're doing part-time work that has a real-world impact, and you get access to unique state benefits. When it comes to the cons, you might get called up more often for hurricane disasters or civil unrest, and you have the same risk of overseas deployments as a reservist. Now, at the end of the day, whether you decide to go active duty, reserve, or National Guard, you're making a powerful choice to serve. And that matters. Each path has its own vibe, benefits, and lifestyle. So it's not about what's better. It's about what's better for you. Some people, they thrive in the structured world of full-time service, and others, they prefer to serve part-time while building their civilian careers or raising a family. And some want the best of both worlds by helping locally and being ready for national missions when needed. So you got to ask yourself these questions. Do I want a military career or military experience? Am I okay with moving often, or do I want to stay close to home? Do I need to keep working or going to school? And am I prepared for the possibility of deployment? So what you want to do after that, you want to go ahead and talk to a recruiter, ask a bunch of questions, compare benefits, then talk to current or former service members, then go ahead and make the decision that feels right for your life and goals. Because no matter which path you choose, you'll be a part of something bigger than yourself. And that's what serving in the Army is all about.